The Moors, a powerful African and Arab Muslim people who transformed Spain and Europe with knowledge, architecture, and science for almost 800 years. Their story is about how faith, learning, and culture turned a corner of the world into a shining center of civilization. Call to prayer, Adhan, echoes in the distance. In the lands just south of the Mediterranean, among Berber and Arab tribes, a new faith and a new energy were rising, and the world would come to know them as the Moors. In the year 711, Moorish armies crossed the narrow Strait of Gibraltar into the Iberian Peninsula, what we now call Spain and Portugal, and began building a new civilization called Al-Andalus. While much of Europe struggled with war, plagues, and illiteracy, Moorish cities lit up the night with lamps, busy markets, and running water. To many Europeans, this looked like another world. In cities like Córdoba, Granada, and Seville, the Moors turned their towns into centers of knowledge and trade, where scholars, merchants, and travelers from many cultures gathered. The Moors valued learning deeply. In an age when some European cities barely had a handful of books, their libraries held hundreds of thousands of volumes on philosophy, science, religion, and poetry. They collected and translated the works of Greek and Roman thinkers, preserved them, argued about them, and then went further, making their own advances in mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and philosophy. In mathematics, they helped develop algebra and trigonometry, using new symbols and methods that made complex calculations possible. Their work with numbers and geometry later guided builders, navigators, and engineers. In astronomy, they carefully observed the heavens, refined star charts, and improved ways to measure time and direction. Their understanding of the sky helped sailors travel more safely and accurately. In medicine, Moorish doctors wrote detailed texts on diseases, surgery, and hygiene. They used hospitals not only as places to treat the sick, but also as schools where future physicians learned from real cases. The Moors were also masters of water. They brought advanced irrigation techniques, canals, water wheels, underground channels that turned dry land into productive farms and gardens. Through their farming and trade, they introduced or spread important crops like oranges, rice, sugarcane, cotton, and almonds, foods and materials that changed European diets and economies. In their cities, streets were paved and often lit, homes had access to water, and public baths were common. At a time when many nobles elsewhere still lived in cold, dark castles, Moorish cities were clean, comfortable, and refined. The Moors were extraordinary builders. Their mosques and palaces combined precise geometry with spiritual beauty, forests of columns, horseshoe arches, and flowing patterns that seemed to breathe. They covered walls with intricate tiles, carved stone, and verses written in elegant Arabic calligraphy. Every pattern, every line was designed to reflect order, unity, and the presence of God. In places like the Alhambra in Granada, water ran through courtyards, fountains sparkled in the sun, and rooms opened onto gardens, palaces that felt like living poems made of stone, water, and light. Their influence even lives in our everyday words, terms linked to science, trade, and daily life, like algebra, alcohol, sugar, coffee, and many more, carry traces of the language and knowledge they spread. But their time in Iberia was not peaceful forever. Christian kingdoms in the north slowly pushed south over centuries in a long struggle known as the Reconquista. Little by little, Moorish cities fell. Treaties were made, then broken. Some Moors stayed under new rulers, others were pushed out, and many faced pressure to convert or leave the land they had helped build. In 1492, the last Moorish kingdom in Spain, Granada, surrendered. That year marked both a Christian victory and the beginning of exile and persecution for many Muslim and Jewish families. Some Moors converted publicly while secretly holding on to their old beliefs. Others were expelled or punished. Over time, the visible Moorish presence shrank, even as their buildings and ideas remained. Yet their legacy could not be erased. Their preservation of ancient knowledge and their own discoveries helped fuel the European Renaissance in science, art, and philosophy. Their work in math, astronomy, and navigation shaped the tools and ideas sailors used when Europe began exploring distant oceans and continents. Today, their greatest buildings still stand, visited by millions who may not fully realize that these masterpieces were created by African and Arab Muslims centuries ago. The story of the Moors shows how a people who honored faith and knowledge could turn frontier lands into centers of learning, where books were treasured, questions were encouraged, and discovery was a form of worship. When we speak of the Moors, we are remembering more than warriors. We are remembering builders, scholars, farmers, healers, and artists who helped carry the light of knowledge through a dark age and whose echo still lives in our words, our cities, and the way we understand the world. If this interests or surprises you, share it with someone who loves Black history.